Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm really excited to talk about my September wrap up. So it is currently today, September 29th. That's the day that I'm filming. So I do tend to film Sundays and then I try and upload the next Friday. So it'll be that Friday is what I try to do. So today I'm going to film this video with the intention of posting this on September 1st, but then going forward, I will be following the same schedule as I've always done. And that's filming Sundays and then posting the video up on Fridays, usually 8 p.m. At least that's the time zone that I'm in here in Canada. So I just wanted to let you know that this video, I'm hoping to have it up for September 1st, and then going forward, I'll be returning to the same schedule. So I love these videos. They're very fun for me. I also enjoy watching other people's wrap-up videos, although I haven't really had the time to do that lately. But I do like to talk about my favorite decks, the decks that I've been drawn to throughout the month. So this will be the decks that I've used all throughout the month of September, as well as the makeup products, because I do consider myself a practitioner of glamour magic. Makeup is a very fundamental, it's like a core aspect of my spiritual practice, and it's a preferred magic of mine. I really do enjoy my beauty ritual. I tend to like to get up early in the morning, and I like to actually pick my cards the night before, so I'll already have an idea of what colors I'm going to be wearing the next day, and I even match it to my wardrobe, so I'm having a lot of fun doing that. And I've had some interesting experiences with some of the decks that I have that I'm going to show you, that I've been working with throughout the month of September. So my glamour magic ritual has kind of changed, at least with respects to the cards. So I'm going to get into that once I show you the decks. But as always, I like to talk about the energy that I'm dealing with. So for the month of September, I've been really exploring the archetype of the swamp and the swamp witch or bog witch. It's really the wetlands, and I'm having a lot of fun with that, and I'm having a really great experience with that as well. I've also begun attempting to do astral travel, which has been a very interesting experience. I haven't, at least in my knowledge, I haven't done it yet, but it's been interesting to have a routine with respects to meditation. So I'm kind of having an interesting experience with that. So because of being so drawn to the swamp witch archetype and the swamp archetype, I've noticed that my makeup, it's really reflective of that. Apart from today I pulled my daily draw from the Witch Sister Tarot was the moon card. So I'm very inspired by moonlight, at least today in my makeup. But generally throughout this whole month, I've been wearing pretty much browns and greens and all their different combos and shades. So all different shade ranges of those two colors. So I think I figured out why there's this, when it comes to the color green and how it's used magically. Of course, we have our typical general meanings of green being fertility, abundance, and earth I've already gone over. But what's really been highlighted with respects to green earth and brown earth with green earth is this wild quality, and how it can be really wild and untamed. It will spread and grow, especially if it's left to its own devices. It can be incredibly wild. energetically. So I've been sort of playing with that with the color green. And like I said, this quality of green earth has been incredibly highlighted for me. And then the brown earth, oh, I also forgot to mention with green earth, it goes through a death rebirth cycle. With brown earth, it has its own transformation, but it's typically something that it happens over a large period of time. Brown earth is all about resilience and standing the test of time. There's like a stubbornness, a solid quality to brown earth. So I've been having a lot of fun merging these two energies together and creating makeup looks with these two colors this month, and really just being inspired by the Swamp Witch archetype, the Bog Witch, you might know her as Bayou Witch. There's so many different names for this type of witch. So, and just the swamp in general. And lately I've noticed throughout the whole month of September, my favorite lake that I've mentioned so much on this channel has also, the waters of the lake have become really murky, very interesting. I can actually show you a picture. But yeah, I caught this photograph of my favorite lake on one of my walks. I'm lucky enough to work really close to home, so sometimes I like to, well, most of the time I like to walk home for lunch, and I happen to be able to be lucky enough to see this during this stage. It's gone through several filter processes at this point, but it's still every once in a while I'll catch it looking a little bit more swampy than usual. But that is pretty much all I really wanted to discuss with respects to the energy. Also, something that I've really had a lot of fun with that I've been doing previously, but it's really been grounded into the foundation of my spiritual practice or my witchcraft practice, is ritually wearing or symbolically wearing the color red to represent bleeding. During, of course, my menstrual cycle, but as well for times that I'm experiencing a significant amount of grief. That's been something that I've been exploring. And of course, I'll share more about this. I might do just a dedicated video on this in the future, but that is something that I've been really exploring, and I've gone ahead and created, or I want to say I've implemented this as a part of my practice. So that's interesting to explore. It's something new that I'm incredibly drawn to doing, and I'm not new to also the use of blood in my practice as well. So it's interesting to use the color red in this way, especially symbolically to represent blood, at least to me. Before we continue in this video, I forgot to mention, if you are interested in getting general collective readings for the week, general collective weekly readings, you can head over to my Instagram. I like to do those for you guys. I tend to do them, usually they go up Sunday morning whenever I get a second to upload the video. I tend to do that as quickly as I can. Weekends are pretty busy. So if you're new here, I like to go over the decks first, and then I'll go over the makeup products, because I do consider makeup to be a really fundamental and core aspect of my spiritual practice. I like to do it in this format just in case you're just here for the decks, and you can click off the video for the makeup if that doesn't really interest you, and that is totally cool with me. So as always, honorable mentions, Witch Sister Tarot, and the Wild Unknown Archetypes. Those are They're very fundamental to my practice. I use these decks every day or at least on a weekly basis. That never changes. So I feel like it's just redundant to keep mentioning the same two decks because I use them so much in my practice. So those are the decks that I always use. So what has been more new to my spiritual practice is the Oracle of the Hekatean Path. So this deck I recently unboxed on the channel, and ever since then I have just completely fallen in love with this deck. It is an incredibly powerful deck for people who work with Hekate. I have another deck in my collection that I have dedicated to her, which is also incredibly powerful because I like to use that deck intuitively, and I've created my own correspondences to that deck that are they're very special to me in Hekate and my relationship with her. But I do have to say this deck is incredibly powerful because it was created by a dedicated practitioner to her. I believe this person has a significant amount of years dedicated to the practice that they share with Hekate. And having this deck it just feels so incredibly special. The creators, I believe it's two creators. Yeah, I've Ken Payne and Chris Butler are the creators of this deck. And I can honestly, genuinely feel their connection to Hekate in this deck, and I feel that they know her very well. I've been really enjoying working with this deck daily. It's become a daily draw deck for me. Over the past, I think, about 2 weeks I've had this deck now, maybe going on 3 weeks. I'm a little hazy on the detail there, but it's become very quickly a general like daily draw deck. And I've been having such a unique experience working with Hekate with this deck. And I'm saying unique from the perspective of just having drawn cards with her for going on, I think, 2 years now. It'll be 2 years in February coming up. It's interesting to have this experience with her because this deck really stands out in my collection, and it feels like it was made for her because obviously it was, but I definitely can say this wasn't a phoned in deck. This was something that the creators crafted with so much intention and care and love for Hekate. And it really resonates. You can feel it in the deck, and you can feel her really coming through with this deck. It's an incredibly powerful, potent deck. It's a very magical deck too. And as with respects to what I mentioned earlier in this video about how my glamour magic practice has changed with my daily draws, I've noticed with the inclusion of this deck. Now I feel like Hekate is telling me what palette to use. So whatever daily draw cards I get, I've noticed that they're sort of forming a picture as to what I'm dealing with that day, how I can best handle it, as well as what makeup palette and color palette I should be using. Which before I used to just intuitively pick that out, or I have certain palettes that are dedicated, like decks too. I dedicate them to certain purposes. And it's interesting to see that now I'm getting a picture of like Hekate wants me to use this palette as opposed to me intuitively picking that out. So I've noticed that change, as well as I've had some interesting experiences with how I pull cards. Usually they would just flip over, or they'll like fall out of the deck. I feel like now she's like, no, I want you to intuitively pick the card. So that's also changed with my card work. which is also really interesting. So that is the Oracle of the Hekatean Path. Another new deck to my collection is the Magick of You Oracle. So I just had an unboxing go up on the channel this week. I've been working with this for the past, I'd say, couple of days since I unboxed it. I think I unboxed it on Thursday or Friday. I can't remember the exact day, but I've been having an interesting experience with this deck as well. Very incredibly magical deck. I do want to say that this deck, it's very focused on shadow work. Which I'm not really interested in doing that right now. I'm more focused on witchcraft at the moment. Not that shadow work isn't witchcraft. It can be, of course, a part of a healthy practice. But I'm just not interested in doing that at the moment. I'm more interested in exploring my craft, and I'm very interested in opening, I don't know how to explain it, or I'm more interested in expressing my psychic, I'm more interested in exploring and expressing my psychic abilities as well as my intuitive abilities, however you want to look at that. As well as really challenging them and testing them, if that makes any sense. But I'm still really incredibly drawn to working with this deck, so I do feel that it has a connection with that, which is something that I'm still exploring at this time. So that is the Magick of You Oracle. What else? Magickal Botanical Oracle is another deck that I've been using this month. So I've been trying to match the energy to the swamp as well, which I haven't got it down 100%. But this is another deck that I do find it has that kind of earthy. This is a very magical deck. It's perfect for a green witch. Very beautiful imagery. This deck likes to add to the conversation about what's going to happen on a daily, I guess for a daily draw on a particular day. It really likes to act as a clarifier. You can also use this deck in a more magical way with respects to spellcraft. You can use these cards as a talisman and plant spirit witchcraft as well. So there's multiple uses for this deck. It's a very powerful deck. Another deck I've been working with is a Compendium of Witches Oracle. So you'll see a lot of witch themed. I really do like to pull out all my witch decks for this season, as the Samhain Sabbath is rapidly approaching, as well as a bit in the winter as well during Yule. I do tend to gravitate towards this archetype, this incredibly powerful archetype. New to my collection-ish, I didn't do an unboxing, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I was going to keep it But what I've noticed about this deck, which I always forget the name of it, I'm so sorry. It's called Witches Through History, Grimoire, and Oracle deck. So it came with this huge book. It's very Middle Ages in art and energy. You'll see like Middle Age pieces of art here. But I wasn't sure if I was going to keep it. And I decided to keep it because what I noticed about the deck is it was very accurate and it really liked to set the tone for your day. So as an example, let me see if I can find the card. Agnes Waterhouse here. I pulled this card on a particular day, and one of the key words is morality. And I noticed that on that particular day, I was dealing with themes of morality. There was this huge emphasis on if what the actions that I was taking on that day, if they were genuine and if they were, it was like really calling into question if I was being moral, for a lack of a better word that's coming to me right now. But I noticed that just about this deck, like it does really, it likes to set the theme of your day or the tone, and you're going to be dealing with that theme throughout the day. So it's just an interesting experience to have with this deck. I don't really have any other decks that like to do that to this extent. It was incredibly powerful in that sense. And like I did find myself like really thinking about my actions on that particular day and really ensuring that I was making the correct choice, for a lack of a better phrase there. Not that I was doing anything shifty or dodgy, but it was certainly talking about ethics, like, and really thinking about your personal ethics and values, as well as what you value, what you prioritize. It was very interesting. And it also overlapped almost with the devil archetype as well, I noticed, with respects to primal instincts, but like really the primal instinct to protect. So I found that very interesting as well, how that energy overlapped. And I had that realization with the devil, because the devil, of course, it's primal instincts, but you always kind of link that to sex or lust. And you forget about the primal instinct to survive or to protect. So it's interesting to have that highlighted with in dealing with that energy with that card. Having that overlap was very interesting for me. Anyway, moving on to the next deck here that I have, the Botanical Oracle. I've spoken about this deck so much on my channel. This is one of my favorite decks, one of my working horse decks. This is the one that I've dedicated to Hekatean. So I have a very unique experience with this deck. I have a very solid foundation with this deck. And I've created some very powerful meanings behind this deck. And I'm always interested with, whenever I pull a card from this deck, I could journal for pages upon pages about what I think the card is saying to me. And I do have a full reveal and review of this deck on the channel. I will post it in the description box below if I remember. Please, if I forget, please remind me in the comment section below if you want to have that linked for you. But it's an incredible deck. So I'm just going to review my notes. Woodland Wardens, I know for sure. I worked with this deck. I did a spread this month on finding out what familiars want to travel with me in the swamp. And this deck has a very fall energy to it. It's very autumn in its colors. It's very muted, kind of vintage looking. It's a very beautiful deck. Jessica, I think her last name is Rowe, is an incredible artist. Very magical deck when you want to see what familiars are walking with you on your path. And there's also an herb or a plant association as well, so I love that as well because it gives you a little bit more additional information or other alternative ways to work with the deck as well. Wow, so we're just about done. I think I have one more deck. Oh, two more decks. So I know one is right here. Tarot of the Hidden Realms. This is the only other tarot deck that I used apart from the Witch Sister Tarot. I've been pulling from the Witch Sister Tarot every day pretty much apart from the days that I'm using this one. So I do love Julia Jeffrey's artwork, and I really like this. I like this deck. It aligns very well with the archetype of the maiden. And you get a lot of the earth tones that I've been drawn to all month throughout this deck, like depicted throughout this deck, as well as her Witch Sister Tarot. But what I like is the Celtic energy that is present in both her decks, but especially the Scottish energy that's present within the Witch Sister Tarot, as she was really connected to her homeland of Scotland, which is where she lives, while she was creating that deck. And I'm sure most of you who've been following me for some time know that I'm actually half Scottish on my mother's side. So I do feel such a strong connection to my ancestry through that deck. It's a very powerful deck for me. And one thing that I don't think I've shared is that I wasn't able to have a very strong relationship with my grandmother until later on in my life. If you're familiar with my family situation, or if you're not, my father he's an abusive alcoholic, so we weren't really allowed around my mother's family for obvious reasons. Because they were well aware of the situation, and they would always try to talk my mother out of being in a relationship with him, which is very common for people who are in abusive relationships or are children involved in these dynamics. But it is something that I feel this connection to my mother's mother, my grandmother, and she was an incredibly feisty Scottish, although she was born in Canada, her father was from Glasgow, Scotland, and she had like this, it was like a brownish red hair, and she had these most beautiful eyes. They were so blue, like the sky. She was an Aquarius, the same sign as my daughter, which I do see the same kind of fiery feistiness. Like, my grandmother was incredibly independent. She survived an incredibly toxic and abusive relationship very early in her life, and then she got divorced and then remarried, and her second husband, from what I've been told, was an incredibly wonderful man, but she survived and outlived both men. She lived well into her late 80s and was a very fiercely independent woman. She didn't take crap from anybody, particularly later on in her life. And I'm thankful that I got to know her later on in my life, although she did have dementia. So there were quite large gaps in her memory with respects to where she grew up and the culture, her heritage. So that's just a story, I guess. But yeah, I can't help but think about her whenever I pick up a Julia Jeffrey deck. I just can't help it and get sentimental and feel her connection and her energy and feel, and I know it's common to work with family members who've passed as well as ancestors around this time of the year, so I feel like that's also a huge part of it. But it's been a very touching month with respects to the energy that I'm feeling, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm gravitating towards those Julia Jeffrey decks. So the last deck, the Samhain Oracle. This is my favorite out of the whole series that I have. But I have 4 of her decks, or their decks, I should say. I have all 3 of the Giada Rose, the original artist, before the new one took over. I have the new ones, I think it's the Litha Oracle. I have the Litha, Yule, Beltane, and then this one. This is my favorite out of all 4. This is the Samhain edition of the Seasons of the Witch Oracle series. And this is an incredibly magical, it's very symbolic, excellent for ritual use, for spellcraft, any type of release ritual work, particularly out of ritual use. I find that it's incredibly potent at release or working with the dark moon cycle, I could say. It's excellent for connecting with dark deity as well as dark familiars like spider energy. I find that this lines up very well with the spider. This is, like I said, it's an incredibly magical, potent deck. It's one of my favorite decks in my whole collection. And I don't just pull it around this time of the year. I pull from all 4 of the decks all year. But I feel a very strong, powerful connection around this time of the year as the veil is getting thinner, as we're quickly approaching the Samhain Sabbath, right? So if you're just here for the decks, now would be the time for you to click off the video. I don't know where to start. So I have 3 lipsticks, 4 eyeshadow palettes, and like a new Colourpop product that I just recently picked up. Well, not recently, I've had it for a while, but I've really used it throughout the month of September. Using it today. This is the Laguna Beach is the shade. It's the Bronze Sticks, Colourpop Bronze Sticks in the shade Laguna Beach. So I have pretty fair skin. I don't know if you can even see that. But I've been using this to contour and bronze my face. All throughout the month of September. Okay, then I guess we'll move on to the eyeshadow. So I have the Klarity Cosmetics Stained Glass Eyeshadow Palette. This is perfect for the fall. Look at the color story, and it's just a little guy, but it has some of the most beautiful shades for this time of the year. I've used every single shade, And some of these I know they look like shimmers. They're multi-chromes. Like one turns gold, one is like, this is like, I think a red brown. No, this one is. This is like a very gold. I think it's like a golden green shift. I could be wrong. And then these two green shades are beautiful. And then this is supposed to be a chocolate brown, but on my skin, it looks almost mauvey or purpley. It's very interesting. It's very unique. But I do find that the Klarity Cosmetics, the eyeshadows and the lipsticks kind of look different on me. But I kind of like it. I kind of like it because I don't know what I'm going to get. I don't know if that's weird for you, but I kind of like the surprise aspect of it. And I do tend to like the way it looks on me anyway. I don't think I've found a single shade where it looked different on me and I didn't like it. So I just sort of have that unique experience with Klarity. The other brand here, I just recently tried them out. They're Cosmic Brushes, or Cosmic Beauty, I think they might have changed or rebranded, because I think they were originally a brush company, like a beauty brush company, and then they expanded the business to also include eyeshadow palettes. So this is a UK brand. I live in Canada, so we have like a really nice, like interesting connection to the UK. I got this palette very easily, very conveniently. I think it just took like a week, if that, to get to me. Look at the packaging. It's absolutely beautiful. So I recently purchased this. It's for Hekatean. I've dedicated it to her. So if you're new to my channel, I think I touched a little bit on it earlier in this video, but I like to dedicate eyeshadow palettes or makeup products. I do it with lipsticks as well, to gods or goddesses that I'm working with. Familiars as well. I have a moth palette that I like to work with moth energy with. But this palette is incredibly beautiful. It's called Undergrowth. Look at the color story. You're gonna get swamp vibes right off the bat, right? Or bog witch. It's like that beautiful grungy, perfect for the fall. And I mentioned this earlier on my channel, in one of my videos, one of my past videos. For some reason, I've noticed with Hekatean, I love, when I'm working with her, I love a grungy makeup look, like the 90s grunge. The Craft, like the original 90s movie The Craft, like those browns, like the really beautiful grungy fall tones. It's just something about her energy when I connect with it. It's like I want to express myself with grunge aesthetics. I don't get why, but it's just interesting with her, because I also work with Lilith and Hades, and I express myself differently and I use different colors with them. So it's just something exclusive to her. Is like I'm very drawn to the greens and the browns particularly, as well as purples. But for me, purple has really come to represent I associate the color purple and green, particularly with the archetype of the witch, but the color purple, it represents sovereignty, especially with spiritual gifts, and really accepting them and coming into your power with them. That's what that color has really come to represent for me. But moving on to the next palette, Unearthly Cosmetics Gargoyle palette. So I have been loving this palette. It stands out from the Swamp Witch vibe from all the other palettes that I'm showing you, but this one, it's like a very cool toned. There's some browns, but it's a very cool toned palette, and it's absolutely beautiful. I like it. Like, I already loved the color story, but it's really stood out in my collection this month. It's an absolutely beautiful palette, and I've been pulling the most from this palette compared to all the other palettes that I'm going to show you today. This is probably my favorite out of all four of them. And I've gotten so much use out of this palette. Like, I think Eerie Echoes, where is it? This is like the most beautiful green shade. I really like the smoky, there's like a smoky gray. I think it's called Deep Sleep. It's looking more taupey in this light, but it is a gray, I assure you. I'm using this one as well as this one and this one on my eye today, and then I just used I used some moon themed shades from my Moth palette. It didn't really stand out as a favorite this month, so I'm not including it in this video, and I didn't use it as much this month compared to the rest of these palettes. Incredibly drawn to these palettes. The last one that I want to show you is the Sorceress Smoke by Unearthly Cosmetics. So I just recently picked this up as well, and I have been obsessed ever since. It actually just sold out on their website, so you can't pick it up right now, but I know that this isn't getting discontinued or anything, so it will be coming back. This is part of their permanent collection. Very grungy, as you can see, very swampy, and you can tell why I'm absolutely obsessed with it this month, because I just can't get enough of the grunge vibes. 3 lipsticks that really stood out for me this month is the Nars. You guys, if you're not new to my channel, you know I love this. The Powermatte Lip Pigment. This is in shade Starwoman. So the website describes it as a blue red. It's a very deep red. It looks like blood on my lips. I don't think it's showing up as deep as it looks in real life because of the lighting, but it's a very deep, it looks very deep, like blood on my lips. So I've been wearing this a lot this month. Another shade that I've been really enjoying is the Fifth Avenue shade. This is part of the Colourpop Ultra Matte Lip collection. It's a beautiful, it's like a pinky nude. Perfect for the days that you just want a soft lip. And I don't know, if you've been watching me for a while, you probably know, or you've maybe seen or heard the part of the video where I talked about one of my favorite red lips. It's called Maxed Out. It's by Colourpop. And it's a tube lipstick, like a lipstick bullet. And I have been looking for a similar shade, but in a matte liquid lipstick formula. And I think I finally found it. It's called Samantha. It's by Unearthly Cosmetics. It's very similar. It's a little different. It's not exactly the same, but it's that raspberry red. And it's beautiful. This is it's a bit deeper, and it's a lot more pigmented because it's in a liquid lipstick formula. But these lipsticks, I have a bunch because they're, I think if you use code BYEBYE, all caps, you can get these for, I'm in Canada, I paid I think $5, a little over $5. If you're in America, I think they're about $3, if that code still works. But I was able to, I picked up a bunch for like a little bit over $5, and this is one of the shades, and I use this as well as some other shades, and I have to tell you, they last all day. This isn't the most comfortable formula though. Like, I find my Nars, although it doesn't last half the amount of time as my Unearthly, this is a lot more comfortable of a formula. And the smell to this one isn't that great either, whereas these smell really nice. But I have to say, like, it lasted all day. I reapplied maybe once, and I didn't even really need to do that. Whereas with these ones, I have to reapply throughout the day, especially if I'm eating something with a lot of oil, or if I'm eating something with a little bit of butter or something, it will break down on the inside of my lips. But have to admit, like this, it's a really great formula. The only thing is I reacted to two that I picked up. I'm wearing one today. I've noticed that if I just put a little mint lip gloss on, it's not as uncomfortable, but I'm reacting to two of the shades that I picked up. Diana, which is this gray color, and Jeanette, which is like this like, it's like a yellowy brown color. It's very interesting, but unfortunately I'm reacting to both. But otherwise, the other three shades that I picked up, I don't react to. So, and I'm kind of curious to get more shades. I'm just a little nervous I'm gonna react to them as well. But that sums up this video and the month of September. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.